strategy.
It's very difficult to suggest any particular security action that can avoid this kind of thing. This particular devastation apparently was caused by a lorry hijacked in Joy Street yesterday. Now there must be some people who saw the hijackers. There must be some people who know who's involved in this bombing. I doubt very much whether there are very many people organizing this. I doubt whether there are very many people taking part in it. But it is high time that every citizen of Northern Ireland, quite irrespective of religion, quite irrespective of politics, came forward and said, I have information. And that, in my view, is the only adequate means of dealing with this sort of situation.
Civilians became increasingly the random targets of a campaign of no-warning bombs, kidnappings and assassinations. In other words, death squads. But the British Army paid scant attention to the loyalist paramilitaries. Their major concern was in dealing with the new wave of mass demonstrations by nationalists protesting against internment. The streets of Northern Ireland soon became a real-life laboratory for the Army's experiments in controlling an insurgent population. And the nationalists were the human guinea pigs. One of the techniques was the use of so-called harmless weapons, including the not-so-harmless CS gas, which was first widely used in Vietnam. CS gas is in fact lethal and can cause permanent damage to the lungs, stomach and eyes. But the gas, the water cannons, the banning of marches, the mass arrests all had little apparent effect. Week after week, large demonstrations were held against internment. Finally, in Derry, on January 30th, 1972, the British Army decided to use a more effective technique: live arms.
Got out before they even stopped the sergeant tank, got on his knee and shot everywhere, and about seconds after, soldiers followed him and done the same thing. And we heard them from that flat there calling, don't stop shooting, shoot the Irish bastards.
No weapon, he hadn't a stone, he had nothing, he was just standing. And as we turned, they started firing. Well, we heard the shots, we heard a few shots, and as we turned, he fell dead.
He went to tell the soldiers to stop firing. You can see the blood running there where the gentleman was shot at.
That's all I can tell. I was too shocked.
Right, Mom, please.
I never saw it even in the worst film I ever looked at. It was massacre. It was mass murder. And I don't care who hears me say it. And I don't care, I never hope to love to see the day that'll never happen again. For it's pure murder. Murder.
They come in shooting, there was no doubt about it. From they come into the backside, they were shooting even before they come into the backside. And there wasn't a nail bomb thrown in this area. No, there wasn't a rifle shot fired. They were the people who done the shooting. And then the police backed them up from the walls here. Police, they shot down from the walls. That's what caused that fellow's death there. He tried to help two other lads, and they were shot down just like a bloody dog, just like animals we were shot at. And I have no doubt, that it was. This has been planned. They called off the Orange meeting and the Paisley Night meeting and the Guildhall so that they could shoot us. They didn't care who we were, didn't care man, woman or child here. A youngster died this morning with a run over with a Saracen, then went back over the top there again. I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to stand by idly and watch it all?
We were anxious to discuss our proposals with the representatives of the British government, but we were determined that if there was going to be a truce, it was going to be a bilateral truce. It was going to be one that would be publicly recognised by the British, and that would be conditions that would be binding on the British Army as well as on the Republican Army. And this was done. Then we went to London and we met Mr. Whitelaw and members of his political staff, and we listened to what he had to say, which didn't amount to very much, and then we presented our own document, our own proposals, and which we called upon the British government to recognise the right of the Irish people as a whole, acting as a single unit to decide the future of Ireland, and we called upon the British government to withdraw all their forces by a specified date. Mr. Whitelaw didn't turn down our proposals. He said he would refer them back to his cabinet, and this is what I believe brought about the ending of the truce. That Mr. Whitelaw went back to Ted Heath, who was Prime Minister at the time, showed him our document, our proposals. Ted Heath read them and turned around and said, well, I don't think there's anything can be done here. You'd better break the truce as soon as you can. And in fact, the truce broke on the following Sunday night. And it nearly broke that morning in Portadown, where there was severe provocation. And it broke on that Sunday night. It was inevitable in view of the behaviour of the British troops in Lenadoon, in Belfast, that the truce was going to break. It broke with tragic results for everybody concerned, but for tragic results for the Irish people, for the English people, tragic results for the British troops and the IRA volunteers and the civilians who've been killed since then. And I hope that the day will come again when British representatives realise that the only way to a permanent peace in Ireland is to meet the representatives of the Republican movement and negotiate with them a phased and orderly withdrawal.
2 days after the peace talks in London, the truce broke down in the Lenadoon housing estate of Belfast. There, 16 displaced nationalist families had been allocated homes by the Public Housing Authority. But the homes bordered a loyalist district, and the Ulster Defence Association, the largest of several loyalist paramilitary groups, opposed the move. In turn, the British Army refused to permit the families to enter the houses. In the confrontation that day in Lenadoon, 6 civilians were shot dead. In the next week, 13 British soldiers were killed. It was the end of a truce which had lasted barely 2 weeks. The commercial centres of Derry, Belfast and other major towns began to look as if they had been blitzed from the air. In the space of a few days, British investment was hit with millions of pounds of losses. And because of warnings, there were virtually no civilian casualties, until July 21st, when bombs placed in Belfast killed 9 civilians. The British government and media seized the opportunity given by Bloody Friday, as it was to be called, to present the IRA as mad terrorists. It was only several months later that an investigation by the London Sunday Times revealed that hour-long warnings for all the bombs had been given to the Samaritan Organization, which had in turn notified the police. For some reason, however, several of the bomb alerts were not passed on by the police to the target areas. The result was several innocent people killed and injured, and a tremendous propaganda victory for the British government.
A lot of people assumed that this distortion was bad journalism, when in fact that was not accurate. For this distortion was a deliberate tactic within the context of Frank Kitson's theory of counterinsurgency, because Kitson has recognized the important role that the media has to play in a counterinsurgency campaign, and has always strived to use the media as a platform where necessary to distort the image of the Republican Army as a liberation movement, and to project this image of the British occupation forces as some kind of police service.
Ten days after Bloody Friday, 22,000 British troops occupied the nationalist ghettos in a move codenamed Operation Motorman. It was the end of Free Derry and Free Belfast.
Let Earth see, there's the power.
There's
the power there. What chance have I against a man like that?
The cream of the British Army, the paratroopers. A couple of thousand came over them house last night and cut us their ribbons. They didn't give us a chance. Arrange a meeting with Jack Lynch and
it's a blarney.
That's a lot of bloody hooey.
Yankee blarney.
We're down up here. We're getting murdered up here. Murdered.
I have made it perfectly clear that these operations are designed to protect the whole community, to remove the fear of intimidation by terrorists from the community, from wherever it may come. And I think that after the work of Her Majesty's government over these recent months, the patience of Her Majesty's government, the work to convince the minority community that we are determined to give them a fair deal, I trust this friction will not arise. I see no reason why it should. The security forces are there to protect the whole community.
There are over 1,000 different British firms throughout Ireland, north and south, controlling more than 60% of the country's total industrial activity.